Any views, discussions, or opinions expressed in this podcast do not represent in any way the opinions or positions of Stanford University, its staff, or its employees.
Welcome to AI Frontiers, Dialogue with Tech Pioneers, the podcast where we explore the future of artificial intelligence with leading experts and innovators in the field. I'm Don Cameron from the Stanford Technology Training team. Today, I'm joined by Pritish Yuvraj, a machine learning engineer at Meta. Pritish has made incredible contributions to AI, focusing on advancing multilingual capabilities and ethical applications. His work spans child safety, content integrity, and well-being projects alongside cutting-edge natural language processing research. Pritish, welcome to AI Frontiers. We're thrilled to have you.
Thank you so much, Don. It's a honor to be part of your podcast, and thank you for having me here.
Thank you. We really appreciate your taking the time to spend with us today. And I want to get started to just talking a little bit more about yourself and learning about what inspired you to pursue a career in machine learning and natural language processing, and how did that journey lead you to where you are now in Meta?
Well, that's a very funny answer. So I was in India doing my undergrad in computer science, and I saw a course by Stanford about machine learning from India, and I took the course on Coursera, and I saw potential, right? I can see that the future is about internet and about AI, because there is so much new data now that you can use this data to come up with meaningful information, and that's how I got interested in AI. And also, like, this is a different era. We are blessed with so much compute. So when we see data plus compute, I think this is the perfect time to enter machine learning. But that got me into AI.
Great. And how did the journey lead to where you are in your current position?
The journey has been a very blessing for me, because I don't think there could have been a better time to do this. And again, the impact which you get, right? Like, I think AI and machine learning professionals right now control almost everything. If you see, right, like, you can do something with images, you can do something with videos, you can do things with text, with translations. So across all domains, you can have an impact, which has been completely unheard of in the past. If you see a single profession like machine learning, right, like contributing to healthcare, contributing to construction, civil engineering, to policies, it's completely unheard of. So yeah, like, I'm enjoying this space. I'm enjoying all the opportunities I'm getting thanks to this field, and yeah, I'm feeling very great about it.
Great. And you earned your master's degree at the University of Massachusetts in Amherst, and you focused on machine reading, question answering, and monitoring health using NLP techniques. And what challenges or breakthroughs stand out for you from your time there?
Yeah, so during my master's time, I was focusing on two different projects a lot. So one of them was food monitoring using natural language processing. So the idea was to use the technique of NLP and machine learning to help people get a feedback of what they're eating, and how will it affect them in long term. And if they have some kind of existing disease, how can this help them find the patterns behind that? So there are a few key innovations which came out of this project. One of them was us learning about something called like word sense disambiguation. So, for example, you can say, "Hey, honey, come here," or you can say, "Honey," or like you can say, "Give me some more honey on my bread." So these two honeys are different in different contexts, and this is like 2017, 2018 machine learning. So we didn't have back then large language models, so we had to like use traditional NLP techniques and improve the existing word sense disambiguation, which is an NP hard problem, to overcome a lot of these challenges. So that was a key innovation in that project, and yeah, very happy that we were able to like get it through. And I think like today is the right time to further continue the project, because you have so many variables where you can take images 24/7, So imagine when you have images plus you can have the audio, like now is the time to like start such projects. Yeah.
Right. And in your current role over at Meta, what do you find most rewarding about the work that you're currently doing?
I think the most rewarding part of being at Meta right now is just the opportunity. Like you are working at the cutting edge technology. Like this is what the world we believe the world will be like working on for next 5 years. This gonna transform everything. And you have the resources, you have the opportunity, and that's very rewarding. Unfortunately, I've seen till now that the research sector, like the universities, have been, let's say, lacking GPUs, right, which is crucial to advancing large language models, or even crucial to bring AGI at some point. So yeah, working at Meta, I think like that's the biggest blessing we have, is like just resources and opportunity.
You mentioned earlier to me before we started recording that you made an announcement this morning. And can you talk a little bit more about that announcement?
Yeah, super excited for that. So today we have launched our Llama 3.3. So it's a 70 billion parameter model, and the performance of this model is at par with a 405 billion parameter model, which is like a big breakthrough for, I think, for in researchers as well as for in industry, because the compute factor, the compute cost has got significantly down, and at the same time, the performance is at par with the 405B, and that's very, like that's a big breakthrough in our sense, because there's two things. There's one is research, and then one is affordability, and this, like, I think checks out both the parameters. And what different we do, so it was a lot about like online RL this time, and that helped us a lot. So yeah, that's the breakthrough in this.
And you had that key breakthrough of going from 1 billion to 405 billion parameters. And what do you feel were some of the key innovations in scaling those models?
Yeah, that's a very good question, and I will say that the challenges are quite different. So I think again, one of the good things of being at Meta, or like one of the blessings, is that I got to train 1 billion, 3 billion, 8 billion, 70 billion, and 405 billion models. And first of all, what you will find is that as the model becomes smaller and smaller, it doesn't learn everything. I think the bigger models have better knowledge, and smaller model lacks it completely. So that's one thing. So you might have to add more data to help the model learn better. But one thing good about small models is that I think it's all about like how much you can actually use, right? So the smaller the model, you can put it on device or like reduce your compute, and that's how you can totally like start using it. For larger models, the way I see them, it's a lot about like a teacher mode, where it helps generate better small models, because all our smaller models came from the larger models. It could not be done the reverse way, right? I think even in the blog post we clearly mentioned that we use a lot of distillation from these larger models to train the smaller models. So yeah, you need them for the small ones.
Got it. And you always have to address the trade-off between the performance and the accessibility when it comes to large scale NLP projects. And how do you address that, the trade-offs when it comes to like the performance and accessibility?
Yeah, and that's a problem which we have still not figured out, I think, in industry. But I'm happy that a lot of startups are focusing on that. So right now, I think the biggest problem is compute. We have seen that larger models do solve a lot of problems, especially let's say you want to use your model for integrity issues, right? A larger model probably does pretty good with a zero shot fashion. But as you go smaller and smaller model, you need to the performance drops. You need to have new data to train the model. So those problems start coming, and even data is a big problem. Like as you see navigate in NLP, why it happens is because not all data is public. A very few part of it is. A lot of companies have this data and they make it proprietary. But that's when, like, I think like Meta is doing a better job by open sourcing everything they have. So if you have the computer, at least you can have these models and try to like train the model and use it.
And what's setting Llama 3 aside from the other models that are out there, the other like ChatGPT, Gemini, etc., um, with the 405 billion or B parameters that you have out there? What else does Llama 3 bring?
So first of all, Llama 3 brings open source. It's open source. What the problem when you, let's say you use ChatGPT, or let's say if you use Gemini, is that you have to give your data to these platforms to fine tune, which means that you don't know what's going to happen with your data. They can also use it like for their own models, right? But with Llama, you can download them, keep it safe in your maybe in your system and your GPUs, and you can fine tune that. And I think that's a big advantage, right? Also, there are restrictions of what you can train these models on, the ones from ChatGPT or from OpenAI and other platforms. So just this flexibility where you can use these models in a safe, private manner and fine tune in a way you want and test it. I think that's a big flexibility. And at Meta, we have been very cautious of putting this narrative that open source models are as good as closed source models. If you see all the benchmarks, we are almost hitting them all together, right? Even if you see our 70B launch today, Llama 3.3, it's at par with GPT-4o in a lot of dimensions, right? So that's our message. Like you need not spend so much of money, right? We want to open source. We want the world to access AI. We want to democratize AI. So we have given it for free, and that's what we are actually saying that hey world, like take it for free and then show us what you can do, right? You need not pay such big amounts to these companies like OpenAI or Google for that.
Mhm. And I got a bigger picture question now for you. And with all this rapid advancements, we're having an AI now, especially with the launch of the Llama 3. How do you feel this will transform how we live and how we work in the next few years or so?
There's just one word answer for it, or maybe two words: massive productivity. You can use Llama for any kind of thing you can imagine. If you are an editor, you can create more content faster. If you're a programmer, you can create more, let's say, code or website or whatever you do with much faster. So anything, everything, like that's the beauty of these large language models, that they can be used for everything. And how are we further contributing it? It's by making the model best and the cheapest possible for you, so that you don't have any restriction of accessing these models, right? And I believe like if you have seen our even our past releases like Movie Gen, like our multimodal Llama, so you can create even like contents going forward. You can create audio, video, images using these models and analyze them using our existing multimodal models. So yeah, I think this is going to be transformative.
And speaking of the transformative, on top of that, we also have these issues when it comes to certain things like biases that may arise. And you're expert in the field of multilingual NLP, and how do you address those biases that may arise, and what kind of tools or frameworks do you rely on for those?
That's a good question, and it has been a problem of machine learning since inception. So first of all, let's understand why biases come. Biases comes from data. Unfortunately, we have to start curating our data better. That's the key to not having these biases at all. But then also there is a big role of evaluation benchmarks here. And that's where I think all the like the researchers and universities across the world can step up, right? It's so they can create these benchmarks and show that these models or any model lacks on certain aspects, right? So I think like that's the two front solution in what I can see. It's like evaluations and better data which goes in. And also I believe like these models can be all the large language models can be used more like a judge on your data set, existing data set, to even find these biases so that you don't train with these kind of data sets going forward.
And that goes close to the other question I was going to ask about. Leading on from that is lots concerned about the misuse of AI these days, especially when it comes to spreading misinformation. And on top of what you're just saying, like what are the steps can AI industry take to address these types of risks?
Yeah, that's a very uh, fair risk which we are seeing going forward with AI, which is misinformation. So and same again, like there's one solution to it. It's about investing in integrity and having policies around it. These models can create fake data, or but at the same time, these models can also be trained as classifiers to find these data. And there's one approach which I've seen across industries, like it's leaving some kind of bookmark. So let's say if there is some kind of data which is not correct or which is generated, having a some kind of bookmark can help. But yeah, I think this is like a bigger problem for the industry, and this would require some kind of policy. And I believe that right now the White House is driving a discussion around this. They have invited all the major US companies to come and find a solution for this, but it's a very valid challenge.
And I want to move on to another challenge, especially when it comes to accessibility and inclusivity and how it's critical in AI development. What do you think are the most significant opportunities that AI has to support these or any types of underrepresented communities?
Yeah, so AI definitely is gonna help all these underrepresented communities. So first of all, let's understand, like let's take my example, right? So when I was growing up in India, right, I did not have access to a lot of education stuff, education books which are available, let's say in a developed country like UK or US, right? But now with Meta AI, so like Llama model is present in Meta AI or even like the ChatGPT, right? Anybody in India can access these contents, right? So it's on us how well we distribute these models across the world, right? And then if anybody can have access to the information, that's when we give them the true potential to grow in life. So let's say a kid right now wants to learn about machine learning, right? And they can just go on ChatGPT or they can go to like Meta AI and find a lot of content about these subjects there, or even like just search where to read about it. It can literally plan you a semester on that particular app. So these information were not there present before. And the second question is about the underrepresented community. So let's hope they speak English, but if they don't, that's not a problem because at least from Llama side, we have made the model multilingual. Llama 3 is a multilingual model. And we have by investing a lot of time, money, and resources to make it even more multilingual. And we are aware the world is diverse. We are aware that there are languages which have a different distribution, and that's why if you see Llama models do good on Latin and even non-Latin languages like let's say Hindi, Swahili, and other languages across the world.
You're a strong advocate for multilingualism within AI, and what challenges have you faced when it comes to that area?
Yes, I am an advocate of multilingualism because I believe that's how the world can access AI. The biggest challenge I've been seeing right now, I think, is data because the internet is written in English and few of the Latin languages mostly. And then there is a huge drop if you see after that for all the tail languages. So data is becoming a key issue for multilingualism. And we have to do innovations in a way that we don't need that much data in these fields, right? Because it's very easy for anybody to use internet data to train, and but it's not easy for us to find data beyond internet, right? Beyond whatever is accessible. So that's the key problem we are seeing right now. And I really hope the industry starts innovating or focusing on finding ways where we can transfer the skills learned in English to other languages. For example, let's say a model becomes good at reasoning or model becomes good at helpfulness in one language, English, but it's able to communicate across different languages. Yeah.
You partly answered my next question when it comes to the multilingual NLP. Where do you see it headed in the next decade?
I I think it should it should go from beyond text. It should go from text to more of the audio, speech. That's how I see it. And I also see that it becomes more diverse, more accepted to talk to these models. And that's the challenge, right? Because and I think like that will help us in some way as well, because a lot of these texts they have disambiguity, they have a different way of spelling, they have romanized versions. But once you start moving towards speech and audio, you would find that a lot of these, like, let's say misspellings, all these problems are gone, right? Because these problems occur when you start training on text, but when you start moving to speech, these problems are gone. And so that's how I wish the field moves forward. Yeah.
That's when we get to more of the phonetical issues when it comes to the speech versus the text.
Yeah.
You also, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, you're good. Yeah.
You also work within child safety and content integrity. And I'm curious about how that shaped your approach to building those types of ethical and responsible AI systems for that type of safety or child safety.
Yeah, so yeah, I worked in on child safety for almost 1.5 years, and it gave me a good prospect of what can go wrong. I think I really wish every ML engineer or people in AI should spend some time understanding child safety, understanding the laws, understanding why kids are at a greater risk, and that transforms. So like I think like it has become part of my life now. Any project I design, right, or even I work on any model right now, I have those things back of my mind, that how can this be misused, or how can this be like try to target kids, right? And that's when like yeah, like a lot of innovations in safety has come forward, right? And again, like that's a lot of evaluation benchmarks are being created for child safety. So yeah, that's the way to tackle it.
And you talked a little bit this about a little bit earlier, but when it comes to ethical considerations, but what do you feel are the most pressing ethical considerations for the AI community right now and potentially for the next year or so?
I still believe the biggest ethical consideration is misinformation, but there's also something about like uh, about copyrights. So let's say if you open ChatGPT, right, and then let's say if you ask create a poem like Taylor Swift song, it's because it trained on Taylor Swift's song in the past. That's why it's able to create those new lyrics. Or let's say for programming, right? Like let's say because ChatGPT and other website, all these apps, they have seen a lot of coding data in the past from probably from GitHub. They're able to start coding, right? And then the question comes, how do you give the credit back to people who actually made this data, right? So that's a challenge which I have been seeing apart from misinformation. But again, not to say misinformation is any lesser as well, because uh, yeah, I mean, if properly used, or if people are not cautious about misinformation, uh, we have seen things can happen. So we have to also be considerate about that.
And that goes into the one of the biggest challenges too when it comes to AI is the misinformation. And any other major challenges that you can that come to mind when you think about AI within the next coming years, especially you mentioned earlier about misinformation. What other challenges are out there?
I mean, I think I mean, in terms of using AI, I would still limit to misinformation mostly. There can be an issue of biases, because ultimately these are models, right? So if people stop interacting with the real world and invest a lot of time with these models, even they will have a similar opinion. We don't want that. We really want stop time, that you spend time with these AI bots and then spend time with in outside, because that opinion needs to be there. And apart from that, I think there are bigger problems in advancing the field, or challenges for the field. One of them I'm seeing is right now resources in terms of electricity, right? In terms of data, we only have so much data in the world, and scaling laws says that you need data along with compute to make a model more and more smarter. That's something I'm seeing from the training side. But from people, I think these are in my mind the biggest challenge. But let me know if you have some other challenges. I can speak on that if I have an idea or opinion.
Well, this might give you some ideas about how do you envision AI contributing to fields like education, healthcare, or social well-being, especially when it comes to multilingual or diverse communities.
Yeah, I mean, I think those are all very good use cases of AI. First of all, education, I'm very excited about because I have seen the difference. Like I was lucky to have access to the internet at a much younger age than most of my friends back in India. And that transformed me. That transformed me the way I think, the way I react, right? And the way I see the world because I had access to a lot of contents, let's say about history, about general knowledge, about computer science, and it gave me a big edge, right? And not all of us, like let's say you are a kid in Africa, right? Not everyone understands English, right? And AI is a tool which can help propagate a good content across the world in the language which people can actually perceive and understand. So I do feel that AI for education is one of the best examples I have seen because before this internet or before AI came, I felt education, a good education, was in the grip of only few people in few countries and in very few languages. But I feel like with AI and internet and massive distribution networks and apps, it's possible that across the world, everyone will have access to AI in language they understand, they feel comfortable speaking. Yeah, and same with healthcare, right? I see AI being a very good tool for doctors in healthcare or even nurses because if you break down, I'm not a medical person, but if you see like it's what doctor does is a lot about experience and knowledge, right? And these models are good at those two things, experience and knowledge. You can train them on so many different cases, and it can be a good tool for a doctor to like use it to better diagnose patients and help them recover faster. So yeah, like all these fields, education, healthcare, and I'm very excited to see how AI is being used.
Great, thank you. And you've also helped contribute to you co-authored the Llama 3 paper and while helping train the large language model. And can you describe what was the most rewarding aspect of co-authoring that Llama 3 paper and contributing to the development?
I think the most rewarding part was telling the world like how we did it, and very few, if you see like across industry, right? Like say if you see the GPT-4 technical report or like say Gemma report, they don't talk much about what techniques were used to train the model, and it was a big mystery to a lot of AI professionals across the world that how are these things being trained. And I was very surprised when our company Meta let us be open about our techniques, how we train the Llama 3 model, and write about it. And I was very happy that we can tell the world of what parameters to use or what tricks we tried, right? And that's something I've seen. Like I've talked to so many people I've seen on Reddit channels that they were happy to see those informations being shared, which was not being withheld by other technical companies, other industry, and then yeah, like a lot of innovations happen from that, right? They knew what we have tried, they knew what worked for us. So I think that's the most rewarding part when you can tell the world that, hey, we have something really cool and we are okay with sharing how we did that. So that's, I think, the most rewarding part of the paper.
I can imagine. Couple more questions here for you. I'm curious about where do you see yourself? Like, what's next for your career? Are there any emerging trends or technologies in NLP that you're particularly excited about?
Yeah, that's a good question. So in terms of my own career, I do want to devote my career in multilingualism and trying to make like these large language models more and more accessible. I do feel there is a lot of scope to improve. But at the same time, I'll also tell the world, apart from like LLMs or like multilingualism, I think the next big thing will be agents. Like that's gonna
Mm,
be massive, and I believe like the economy will be completely different after that. Like imagine there are like multiple small agents, like we have ML agents and they're talking to each other. And that's how I vision a future. So maybe you can have your own agent, which let's say is trained on the language you speak, and it can talk to some customer care and then do some job on your behalf, and you're not even being bothered about it. So I think the world will become a lot more productive, and that's how I really envision tomorrow.
Great. And building on that, what advice would you give aspiring machine learning engineers who are passionate about finding their footing within multilingual NLP or any large-scale AI systems?
Yeah, so I would say like this is an exciting time. Unfortunately, the industry has been, or the economy has been hard for like past 2, 3 years. I would say don't feel bad about it. There are good times and there are bad times, and the future is very bright. I would say the future is bright. There is a lot more to do in this field, and it's on us. Like we have expanded the scope. Imagine like where we came from, right? If you see computer science, it was just like an expensive machine back in 1960s. Only very few big companies could afford for some kind of spreadsheet task, right? And from there it became global thing. Every single house across the world was having computers in after 90s, thanks to internet, right? And then ML came, where we were able to use all this data from the internet to have something meaningful, right? Translations came, images came. But as you go forward, all of us, we promise that it will be like an agentic behavior, agentic world, where you will have small agents across talking to each other, and a lot of potential will come. Like I'm quite sure we will have tons of like new jobs around this, better economy. So yeah, that's what I'll say. Like keep doing what you're doing, love the field, invest, learn. I mean, say learn a lot. I mean, I've seen a lot of these posts being made, a blog post that coding is out, don't learn all this thing. But I don't believe in this. I believe that you should learn. I believe that you should be the best in the field, because these large language models are ultimately like a, in my mental model, a fancy pattern matcher, right? And that's when you can excel. Like you should use them as a tool to do things in a more productive manner, in a better fashion, and not be in a state where you are like at par with these state of the art models. So yeah, like invest in yourself, learn, and then should be good. Very bright future.
Thank you very much, Pritish. And again, we really appreciate your taking the time to be here today.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Thanks, Don. Stanford for me is very special because my first course in machine learning was from Stanford, and yeah, like it's like giving back to the college and the community, and I'm happy. Like if someone has further questions, so please feel free to reach out to me anywhere on LinkedIn or email. That's completely fine.
Thank you, Pritish, for joining us today and sharing your insights. This brings us to the end of this episode of AI Frontiers, Dialogue with Tech Pioneers. We hope you enjoyed our conversation with Pritish Yuvraj. To learn more, check the links in the show notes. Thank you for listening, and until next time, stay curious and keep exploring the frontiers of AI.